Buck Strickland had several mistresses throughout the show, including both Donnas from accounting, but the one we all remember the most was Debbie, for better or for worse.
Debbie! You're on take wipe!
Hey folks, welcome to Squirrel Tactics. Like, subscribe, check out the Patreon, let's do this. Debbie Grund, we'll have a discussion about her last name here in a second, mistress of Buck Strickland and systems manager at Strickland Propane. How did she get that title? Well, that happens in Deconstructing Henry.
I knew systems manager.
Systems manager? Well, hell, I like the sound of that. Debbie, that's your new title.
No, she's not in systems. You disrespect important job.
Well, I can't imagine anything more important than what Debbie does.
She has several appearances, though only 2 where she speaks and only 1 where she's actually seen speaking. Her first appearance was in Junkie Business, where we see her laid out on the couch as part of the employees abusing the Americans with Disabilities Act.
What the hell is going on here? Shh. She shushed me.
Though she could probably get away with being on the couch even if everyone else was working, considering we see that she's treated differently than the other associates by Buck.
Y'all get back to work. Debbie, you just lie right there.
Also, this episode had this joke, which I'll be honest, I didn't get when I was a kid, but it's pretty funny as an adult.
Debbie's got the yuppie flu, and Hector claims he has something called priapism. He wants a roomier workstation and a view of Debbie.
If you aren't aware of what priapism is or why the joke's funny, I suggest you look it up because I am not going to get age restricted again. Also, going back to Debbie's last name, we see here on the company whiteboard that her last name is listed as Schwartz, not Grund. So either Schwartz was her married name and Grund was her maiden name, or Grund was her married name and Schwartz was her maiden name, or the powers that be just didn't pay enough attention and change her last name. Yeah, probably the latter. Another thing I just wanted to point out is if you look at the whiteboard here, but then look at it again here, yeah, those names are not in the same order. Anywho, by this point, it's hinted at that something is probably going on between Buck and Debbie, like we see in Propane Boom, where she and Buck held a late night idea session for how to compete with Megalomart when they start selling propane and propane accessories.
But Debbie and I stayed late last night, and after that, we came up with a plan.
Yes, we have a plan. Good work, Buck. And, Debbie?
And her next appearance, we hear her voice, though we don't see her in Peggy's Pageant Fever. When Buck asks her to cut a check because he thought Peggy and Luann were there to get him to sponsor Luann in a beauty pageant.
Debbie, write me up a company check for $2,000.
But then he finds out that it's Peggy entering the pageant and not Luann, which makes him change his mind, but hey, the check's already been written.
Debbie, did you finish writing up that check?
Yes, Buck!
Oh,
Now, the voice goes uncredited in this episode, so we do not know for sure who did it, though it's possible that it was Kathy Najimy, the voice of Peggy.
I love Doris Selwyn. Who's a good bird? I love Doris Selwyn.
It's also possible that it's Ashley Gardner, considering how many voices she did for the show. Next, we see her as the pitcher for the Strickland softball team, the Bobtails, in Take Me Out of the Ball Game. Though she does end up being replaced by Peggy, and I can honestly say that Debbie was not the worst player on the team.
Oh man, did you see that second bun I laid down?
They threw you out about 20 feet, you sweet gazelle.
Then we have her final non-speaking appearance in Helenium, where we see her accompanying Buck when he runs off with her to ride out the millennium in case all hell breaks loose.
no, I don't have time for that. Debbie and me going to the desert to ride out the apocalypse. I'll be back in 2 weeks.
And this finally brings us to her main appearance in Hanky Panky, where she's voiced by Reese Witherspoon. By the way, fun fact here, Reese Witherspoon's husband at the time was Ryan Phillippe, who the next season would go on to voice Wally in 'Twas the Nut Before Christmas.
Now get off our property or I'll citizen arrest you.
Damn it, when Bill comes home...
When Bill go home...
What the hell are you doing?
What the hell did you do?
Anywho, she accompanies Buck to a fancy gala for the Texas Propane Dealers Association.
Oh, Mr. Strickland's wife is beautiful.
that's not his wife. That's Debbie from work. Pretty gal like that should have been able to get a date.
So there is no Texas Propane Dealers Association. The closest thing to it is the Texas Propane Gas Association, which Hank mentions a few seasons later in A Man Without a Country Club.
You know, Ted, I'm a member of the PGA myself. The Propane Gas Association.
I just kind of find it odd that they'd flub something like that, but I digress. Unfortunately, while Hank is making his acceptance speech for winning the Blue Flame of Valor Award,
To quote Dr. Luther King, I had another dream, to sell propane and propane accessories.
Dr. King.
okay, yeah, it's not a speech, it's a full-on presentation. I mean, Hank has to Hank. But whatever it was, Buck's wife, Miss Liz,
Too hot that is!
interrupts because she caught Buck and Debbie trying to swallow each other's heads.
Now, the I stands for...
Jackass!
No, no, it's for integrity. That's not even the right letter.
So she orders Buck to get out of their house and their lake house and kind of makes a scene, which makes total sense considering she caught her husband publicly cheating on her.
Now, Miss Liz, just calm down here. We in public.
You are in public with this little bimbo in front of half our Christmas card list. Are those my mother's earrings?
I mean, her husband's mistress is wearing her mother's earrings. That's pretty bad. But she does apologize to Hank and ask him to start over as she leaves.
Now where was I?
D for done.
Debbie shows back up to Strickland with Buck. I'm guessing he'd already moved into her apartment with her by then. Though it's odd how they enter. I don't know if Buck didn't want it to look like they arrived together or if he's just being kind of a jackass. Possibly a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. But take notice of how Debbie's walking here.
Hank, my office. Pronto.
Morning, Debbie.
They both show up the next day, and Buck gives the employees a talk, though they're all aware that Miss Liz is already in Buck's office, so it must have felt kind of weird.
Now listen here, children. We're a family. Now, Daddy still calls the shots, but Debbie's your new mama.
The two learn of just who's waiting in Buck's office, Miss Liz and her attorney, and here we see her take what's at best a backhanded compliment as a totally sincere compliment, either because she's not smart enough to realize it wasn't really a compliment, or she just legitimately was proud that men would do stupid things for her. I mean, we saw how she walked earlier.
Well, you must be the adulterous correspondent in this divorce. Aren't you pretty? I see how you can make a weak man stupid.
Thank you.
Buck is forced to leave, and we get to see just how dumb Debbie really is.
Debbie, you stay here. I need you to be my eyes and ears.
I'm his eyes and ears.
Yes, but your butt belongs to me.
And with Ms. Liz now being the Strickland in Strickland Propane, rather than fire Debbie, she decides it's better to simply punish her so Debbie gets a new position.
What's the worst job on this team?
Worst paying or most degrading? Oh, hell, it's the same for both. Tank wipe.
Debbie! You're on tank wipe!
Also in this episode, we learn that Debbie lives in the singles complex Casa Linda, more specifically Building 25, Apartment 318D, and that she has a roommate named Gail who's a fan of Hot Wheels. We also learned this from Buck.
I like to eat, I like to hump, and I don't like to drive. So I built Sugarfoot's next to the singles complex.
Sugarfoot's barbecue. So sweet, you could eat it with your feet.
Miss Liz officially promotes Hank to manager, but he has a new uniform and a new nickname.
Boy toy!
Boy toy? I don't even know what that means.
It means you're Miss Liz's Debbie.
Hey.
See you around, Debbie.
Which is not a fair comparison. I mean, Hank actually works, and even though Buck is gone, Debbie is still on her knees shining a knob. Seriously though, we never really hear any complaints of Debbie's ability to do her job, so I'm guessing she wasn't a bad worker. And she got that pageant check ready for Buck quick, fast, and in a hurry, so I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that Debbie would have kept her job even if she wasn't sleeping with her boss. And even under Ms. Liz, Debbie is doing her job. She complains to Buck about Ms. Liz while Buck is pulling hair out of a drain, I might add.
I haven't had time to do anything except be your wife's slave. Buck,
You gotta do something.
And to be fair, she has a point here.
Well, I'm tired of wiping tanks all day to support this home, while you sit there like a king watching all my children with Gail. Jeez.
Now, I feel no sympathy for her, but I can understand that spending your entire time at work being punished would not exactly be a barrel full of monkeys, and considering that Buck couldn't do anything to help her, well, Debbie probably only saw one solution.
I need you to protect me from Miss Liz. She hates me.
Well, you are having an affair with her husband.
No, I was having an affair with my boss.
I mean, it is a bold strategy.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
And it would probably work on a lot of guys. Debbie is apparently a rather attractive young lady, so let's see how this one works out here.
You're my boss now, Hank.
No, sir. I'm sorry, but at this point in time, I'm going to have to reject your advances.
Yeah, it didn't work, because of course it didn't work. Hank's not gonna do that. Honestly, Debbie had a better shot at seducing Miss Liz than Hank. But she gave it a shot, and she persisted in the face of adversity.
Hank! Stop it!
Oh, God.
This ain't over! Nobody rejects Debbie Grund!
Well, I just did.
Okay, fellas, this right here is exactly why you never stick your in crazy. I get it, she's hot, but she's crazy. It ain't worth it, and here in a minute, y'all are gonna see why. She even warns Hank as he's driving off like he could actually hear her.
You'll be sorry, Hank Hill!
Debbie, I guess, then gets the bright idea that in order to get back at Hank for rejecting her advances, she needed to call Peggy and lie about having an affair with Hank. This did not go exactly to plan since Peggy wasn't home and was instead at Sugarfoot's, technically Peggy Sugarfoot's.
Tell her that Debbie Grund slept with her husband.
Who is this?
It's Debbie. Remember me?
Put that old lady back on. Maybe she can talk some sense into you.
Debbie then threatens to go to Sugarfoot's and lie to Peggy's face, which makes Hank go in a direction I did not see him going.
I'll tell your wife myself.
No. You don't want to do that.
Why not?
Well, because then it would make it even harder for us to, pursue our relationship.
Yeah, he told Debbie just what she wanted to hear just to keep her from running to Peggy.
So we're gonna do it.
Yes, we are going to do it.
Oh, I like it when you talk dirty.
And I am not a fan of Peggy Hill, I've been pretty clear on that, but if I were in Hank's shoes, I would let Debbie go on over to Sugarfoot's and tell Peggy whatever she wants to tell her, because I have enough faith not only that Peggy wouldn't believe her, but she'd probably kick Debbie's ass. Hank does have a fun reaction to the phone call though.
Therefore, I'm now going to drive over there, baby. I just had phone sex.
And technically this is the last time that we see Debbie alive. Peggy finds her body in the dumpster behind Sugarfoot's.
Debbie? Somebody shot Debbie!
Okay, I hate to nitpick here, but when Peggy approaches the dumpster, there's a leg hanging out, but Debbie's entire body is in the dumpster when Peggy looks inside. Now, you could say that the leg just slid inside when Peggy opened the lid, which is possible, except when Peggy backs away, the leg is back. Did Peggy move the body, or was just an animation error? It's kind of weird either way. We do find out who killed Debbie in High Anxiety, and luckily at the time, this wasn't a season-ending cliffhanger and viewers only had to wait a week to get their answers. And who killed Debbie Grund?
So, Debbie Grund's killer was Debbie Grund.
Nope, not Red Herring. It was Debbie Grund who killed Debbie Grund. Remember me talking about her being crazy earlier? Well, we're gonna go ahead and circle back to that. So, Debbie had seen Buck and Miss Liz reuniting at Sugarfoot's, and she just couldn't have that. So, Debbie took Buck's shotgun and hid in the dumpster at Sugarfoot's. I don't know for sure who she was planning on killing. Maybe just Buck, maybe Buck and Miss Liz. Maybe Hank and or Peggy too. What matters here is that she went homicidal, and if it hadn't been for her getting getting hungry and running on over to the get in, get out.
Get in, get out. When you need snacks real fast, but don't need them to be real good.
For some nachos and a big gulp, she would have seen Buck and Ms. Liz leave. Luckily for the couple, she didn't and instead went back to the dumpster.
For as Debbie climbed into that dumpster, her foot accidentally tripped the hammer on the gun.
Yeah, Debbie shot herself at close range with a 12-gauge shotgun and somehow there was not blood everywhere. Also, pretty sure the only reason the clerk isn't freaking out about a customer holding a shotgun is because the customer is hot and wearing a skimpy outfit. That's pretty privileged, man. So, Debbie was a young, attractive woman who was used to getting what she wanted due to being a young, attractive woman. She was a decent enough worker, but was not at all against taking advantage of a situation. She was also crazy. Like, really crazy. Probably also entitled. I mean, she tried to blackmail Hank into having an affair, and when she saw that her former meal ticket had moved on, she hid in a dumpster to kill him and possibly others. Now, granted, she may have had a psychological break when she was denied what she wanted for the first time, but she still went way too far. I just think we're lucky the only person that Debbie ended up killing was Debbie.
Sorry about that whole frame up there, Tano. I was under a lot of stress.
Yeah, okay. I guess if my mistress had been murdered and my wife were a suspect, yeah.
Now, I am not a history buff, but I tell you, I don't remember Louis XIV spending his days pulling hippie hair out of drains.
You're out of tortilla chips, Buck.
Well, that's it. Debbie, get me my flip-flops. I'm going to shave in the pool.